Okay, the material that we're going to use to cover up the joints and the fasteners and the corner beads and everything, this material is called joint compound. All right, mud is the other name for it. Okay, I need a box of mud. Um, Joint compound is the official technical term. Everybody's going to call it drywall mud. Okay, in the industry, what we want to do, like with other things, we want to apply it in multiple thin layers. Okay. If we were plastering, I haven't done a whole lot of plastering, but plaster is pretty incredible. You can keep building it up and building it up, half-inch thick, three-quarter-inch thick in one pass. You cannot do that with drywall mud. Okay. Very thin layers. Okay. A couple things will happen. If you try and build it up too much, it'll just collapse. And the other thing, if you try and build it up too much, it'll never dry. Okay. This stuff cleans up with water. It's really nice and easy to clean up. We've got a couple different categories, and I kind of mentioned these briefly already, but we've got setting type and we've got drying type joint compound. Setting type we commonly call hot mud. Hot mud comes in a bag. It's a powder, and you mix that powder up with water, and it creates a paste. It creates drywall mud that way. This stuff dries via chemical reaction. Okay, drying type technically dries by a chemical reaction also, but it's a little bit different. This stuff, you buy it according to how long you want the working time to be. So if we want to really patch some drywall up and finish this thing off and get out of there, we can get 5-minute mud. Okay, you have 5 minutes to work with it before it starts to dry and get hard, essentially. Okay, you can get 20-minute mud, 45-minute mud, 90-minute mud, 180 mud. It's really nice to use because, like I said, if you get the right kind of mud for what you're doing, you don't have to wait around for mud to dry before you can go to the next step. Okay, I really like using the setting type compound hot mud for filling in joints and cracks and bad spots before I tape. Okay, we call that step of the process the pre-fill. Okay, I've got all my rock hung. I'm just going around. I've mixed up some 20-minute mud, and I'm going to patch up all the really ugly, nasty stuff that I know I can't fix with paper tape and regular drying type joint compound. Okay. The other benefit of this mud, like I said before, like you have to do really thin layers with the joint compound. You can build this stuff up a little more. Okay. You can fill big gaps with it. Okay. And it'll dry. Whereas if you try and fill a big gap with the other type, the drying type joint compound, it'll take a week to dry if you try and fill some really thick, really wide gap. Okay, so you want to go around first with the hot mud, fill all the big gaps. Okay. Drying type joint compound, this dries by evaporation. Okay, and this stuff just comes in a box or a bucket. This is mostly what we're going to use. Okay, if I'm doing a drywall job, I'll buy like a bag of 20-minute mud or 45-minute mud or something like that. But the majority of the joint compound I use is going to be drying type. Okay, so like I said, I'll go around and get all the really big, nasty stuff with the hot mud. Then I'll come back with the drying type, and that's what I'll use for my taping, floating, all of my successive coats. Okay. This stuff dries by water evaporation. Okay, so it's already pre-mixed. You just scoop it out of the bucket, scoop it out of the box, put it in your drywall pan, and you can start mudding. Okay. Usually what you do is that first coat is the tape coat, and you leave that overnight. You let it dry for 24 hours, and then you can come back and you can coat everything again. Okay. Maybe you don't want to wait that long. Maybe you're just doing a bathroom or you're doing something really small. Then maybe you want to use everything for setting type compound. But usually if you're doing a house, it's a day to just go around and tape everything, and then you come back the next day and you start over again. So it kind of works out with the timing. You don't have to wait for it to dry because there's a lot more work by the time you get around and finish everything else. By the time you come back to where you started, it's been 24 hours and it's dry. Okay. They have a special taping mud that you can buy. It is mud, it's joint compound that has glue in it, okay? And it makes taping a lot easier. Okay, when I was first learning how to drywall, I had a lot of problems with bubbles, tape bubbles, okay? And if you've done this before, you know what I'm talking about. You didn't have enough mud on the wall. And it's kind of a balance, trying to figure this out. You want to get enough mud on the wall for the tape to stick into it so that it doesn't pull away and leave a bubble. But you don't want too much mud on the wall so that you don't have this big like cake of drywall mud on the wall that you have to figure out what to do with, okay? So it's kind of a delicate balance, but the taping mud is a lot more forgiving than normal all-purpose joint compound. It's so sticky, the tape really sticks to it and you don't have that problem. And what happens with a tape bubble, like I said, you don't have enough mud on the wall and the tape will actually pull away in places. So you'll see this little bubble of paper sticking out, okay? And you can try and like float over it and fake it and it'll never work. What you have to do is cut that tape out, put some more mud on the wall, put a new piece of tape in, okay? And so the frustrating thing about that is you think, okay, I've done all my taping, now I can start the second coat. You have these spots where you've started all over again and you have to work around those, okay? So taping mud can be a great solution, and I know drywallers that's just what they do. They get, for every job, they get a couple boxes of taping mud and they do all their taping with that taping mud, okay? Topping compound is another kind of drying type joint compound that we can use. And what I like about this stuff is it's really lightweight and it sands really, really easily. So usually what I'll do with this, like ideally, if I'm doing a whole house, I'll get taping mud and I'll do all my taping with that, okay? I'll get topping compound and every coat after that, I'll use topping compound. Or at the very least, maybe just use it for that final coat. Let's say you want to do a nice smooth wall. This stuff lays down really smooth, really flat. It's really lightweight. It sands really easily. Okay, so it's really nice for a nice smooth wall finish. Okay. This stuff +3, and I don't get why we have other types of joint compound if this is supposed to just do everything and it's the best. Okay, but apparently this is the best and it can do everything. So you can do your taping with it, you can do your skim coating with it, you can fill with it. It's got some sort of additive in it that makes it stronger. Okay, I've fairly recently started using this, and I think there are a lot of people that they just use this for everything. Okay, all-purpose joint compound. This, I think before +3 came out, this was the all-purpose joint compound. You could use it for everything. It just didn't do all of those other jobs as well as the specific joint compound. So you could use it for taping. You could use it for skim coat. You could use it for your final top coat. And it would be fine. It just wouldn't be as good as those specific ones. Whereas, for whatever reason, they're claiming that the +3, you can use it for everything, and it's just as good as everything else. So I'm just going to use this, I guess. I don't know why they have all these other ones.